the competition you're playing against? I mean, just how hard is it to evaluate just how good the team played in that said series?
Well, it's not that tough to evaluate because, especially in these last two weekends, anytime you can win a series in this league, it's huge because you're playing a team three times and you are, putting a pitcher against them for the second time, all those things. So I think when they're finding ways to win series, when we're not necessarily playing our best, I think that's a huge confidence boost. And so I think that what we're doing right now is evaluating our process. And so it's really great that we feel like we are better in our approach and we are better in how we are playing. And then it also obviously helps when you win a series on top of that, because it shows them that when you do it the right way, when you focus on the right things, the outcome that we want is out ahead of us. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Last thing for now is just, talking about still this point of your coaching career at Arkansas, you're still getting first. You back up a first win at Tuscaloosa, then your first win in that series win at Bogle against Florida. Just how do you keep, your focus, but yet still soak in those first, even at this point in your coaching career?
Well, I think you still celebrate them, and those are big things for the team to accomplish. It's prior to going to Alabama, we had only ever won 2 games in in Tuscaloosa. That is a huge statement in itself. And then that weekend we doubled that. It's a really tough place to win. And so just getting them, how we won it is we just focused on being our best and focused on our process and not letting the environment or anything make us big-eyed. And so it's celebrating how we're doing it still, but also celebrating it's a big freaking series to win on the road. And then you get Florida at home, and we had never won a game against Florida at home. And then you win the series. And so you celebrate that. But ultimately for us, it's still just celebrating our process and then knowing, that's the fun and exciting thing early, when it's like, oh, all-time winningest coach or staff. And it's like, shoot, we still have a lot of things ahead of us. I feel like we're just getting started. And so it's those weekends where you really feel that, where there's still a lot of firsts out there. And so I'm really excited about where this program is. We are going to continue to celebrate those firsts because they're a really big deal. And we're also really excited about where we're going.
Jason?
Talking about hard place to win, I know Bogle Park wouldn't have really been probably put in that category whenever you first arrived, but this weekend you had over 9,000 people over the course of 3 days, dogs barking everywhere. Just will you talk about how you've seen just over your time, it seems like Bogle now is really one of the destinations in college softball to catch a game.
Oh, well, yeah, our fans are incredible. I mean, I wouldn't trade our stadium for anything. Just the environment that Bogle creates when it's full is it's unmatched across the board, across college softball. And it's interesting because I did an interview earlier this week or something, and they were just like, oh yeah, it's like if you build it, they will come mentality. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. When we got here, we knew our fan base was one of the best. I mean, we knew, but we also knew we had to win them over. And so that was one of our goals early in our time here, is let's give them a product that they want to come follow. And I think that we've done that. We know we have loyal fans. We have incredible fans across all of our sports. We're in a really unique position in the state of Arkansas, and just feeling like you get to represent the entire state, and the entire state's behind you. And so we felt like, okay, if we give them a product that they can attach to, they're going to show up for us, and they have done that. And so it's been really fun to each year. It's been earlier. I mean, obviously with how many season ticket requests over how many season tickets available is incredible. But you're walking up to a game in March and there's a line to get in for the berm and for the chairbacks, and it's really, really cool. I think Bogle Park, honestly, I'd put it up against any stadium, any fan base in the country. I just think it's the best. And I know I have a bias, but I mean, it's the best. So I don't care if people are mad at my bias.
And then the last thing that I'll ask is, of course, there's still a lot more softball to play this year, so it's hard to kind of, really dissect and say, oh, you won't go through another rough stretch again at some point. But really, that rough stretch that you went through, the team went through with kind of going through A&M into that series in Wichita, but then the response that the team's had since then. Will you just talk about kind of, I guess, the way the team is really, like you said, then the sky wasn't falling, and the way that they were able to just kind of put those aside?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge moment for us. Obviously, we were in a tough spot. And the ability for this team to refocus and just take it as a huge lesson is really big. And it's interesting. I was talking to Hunter about it yesterday, and he's like, okay, it seems like we're on the other side of that, like we're playing well. And it's like, yeah, we're playing well, we're playing better, we're playing Razorback softball. I'm not going to promise that we're not going to have one of those games. And it's because we're not perfect. We're young and we're still learning and we're still figuring out who we are. But I will guarantee that we're not going to stay in that moment as long as we did. And as we were going through it, I think the big thing is that we continue to tell the team is when we get out of this, we're going to be stronger for it. And we're going to have a lesson that last year's team didn't even learn, is just how to get ourselves back in the moment. And so now I do think we might have a flash of that, but we won't stay in it long because we know how to get out of it and we know how to refocus. And so I'm really, really proud of the team for staying the course. I'm really proud of the team for in that moment leaning into each other instead of away. Because a lot of things can happen in that time, and I do know that we are stronger for going through that and learning how to get out of it.
On that same note, how impressive is it that, the response, it's not like you got to choose like who you're going against. It was like the response, it has to be Alabama and Florida back to back.
Yep. I may or may not have said that to some of my family. It's like, okay, cool. We get to figure it out at Alabama. Neat. But I think sometimes that's better because they demand their opponents that demand you to be your best. They demand you to fight. They demand you to stay together. And so I think that's why we're in this conference, more than anything. And so, it's a tall order to not be playing your best, maybe playing, what would be arguably your worst stretch, and having to come out of it at Alabama and against Florida. And so that's where I can give the team even more credit, because I'm just really proud of them for staying through it, sticking it out and staying together. And again, we might have a flash of that. This team is still young, but we're not going to wallow in it. That's for sure.
Order. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, you're talking about after the game pulling from the same side. And do you think after the Alabama and Florida series that, yes, you're pulling from the same side, but some of the veterans can kind of let go of the rope a little bit, seeing how your freshmen and transfers come in and really they knew they could count on them to pick them up as well?
Yeah, I think that's one of the lessons that we've learned through this time. When this game's an interesting game, and I say this a lot, it's a funny game because it can play tricks on your mind when you're failing more than you're succeeding, and you may play your best and lose, you may play your best and go 0 for 3. There's so many different examples. And I think what that stretch told us more than anything is that we're not all fighting this battle individually. And I think that that's sometimes the case. You feel like you put more pressure on yourself, or you put more pressure on an area, and really it's just figuring it, getting the job done that day together. And I do think that it's let our veterans take a breath a little bit. I think there's still more breath to take with some. But I think it's showing more than anything that we are stronger when we're, a group and we're not trying to win everything as an individual. And so when you step in the box or you take the mound or anything and you feel the entire team behind you, fighting for you and with you, it's a lot different feeling. And so it was just reiterating that, and maybe they can't let go of the rope, but maybe they don't have to strangle it, feeling like they're the only ones pulling when it's a collective pull and we're working together.
Last thing for me, just talk about Hannah and just the fact, knowing going into the season she's going to be the catcher, then moving back to third base and just kind of struggling at the plate. Just how big was it for her to finally come together at the plate, and just her confidence going into this series?
Well, it's huge, and I'm really happy for her. And I think that she's super, super critical of herself. And so I know that she's not pleased with, that's the game for you. Like, she had a great game Friday and then wasn't what she wanted it to be on Saturday and Sunday. And so we're continuing to work through that mentality piece. That the transition for Hannah from catcher to third was more so just making our most passionate player more accessible to our team. That's what it was more than anything, is that she plays with a lot of emotion, and we wanted that to be closer to the rest of the team. We had a feeling like it would be able to impact more from that position. And so I think that she's still working through it. I was really, really happy for her on Friday night. She is working her tail off, maybe too much. She's a worker. And she's, again, when she fully gets through it, she's going to be stronger for it. But we're all picking her up.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Well, do you have anything to ask? All right. Thanks for your time, Coach.
Thanks, guys.